the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. I'm your host, Mari Reisberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Tim Bradley, co-founder of Pennant Video. Please enjoy Tim Bradley. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. Today, I'm chatting with Tim Bradley, co-founder of Pennant Video. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here.
I'm excited to dig into creativity and how it shows up in your life. But before we get there, why don't you take a couple of minutes and let our listeners know a little bit more about who you are and what it is you do.
Yeah. So as you said, I'm co-founder of Pennant Video Co. So we're what we describe ourselves as like a mid-funnel focused video agency. So mid-funnel, if you're not in marketing, no big deal. Basically just means when we work with brands, a lot of business to business or B2B brands. So think like cybersecurity and healthcare and life sciences and software, green tech, climate tech, right? So really these very sort of like complex and complicated and innovative types of industries, right? And so we use the power of video or the medium of video, right, to help them provide clarity and provide creativity and provide, the sort of the right touch points with their prospective buyers throughout their buyer's journey, right? So that's where the mid funnel sort of comes in, right? But for listeners that aren't in sort of like this type of marketing speak jargon world, we produce live action and motion design and animated videos to help express a brand and help them differentiate themselves, demonstrate what they're all about, and validate with like customer storytelling and things like that.
Nice. I mean, it sounds like there's so many pockets of creativity that you're
Oh
pulling
yeah.
from and presenting with. And how did you, I guess I'm curious how you landed here. What was
Yeah.
your journey into this mid-funnel B2B video
Yeah,
space?
no. Oh wow. Well, buckle up. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, the sort of like the big notes of the sort of life story is like looking back, my I have two younger brothers, and my parents had that big sort of clunky Panasonic VHS camcorder. You know what I mean? Like we
Yeah.
all probably had that, for the birthday parties or whatever. But yeah, my dad was, sort of gracious enough to let us use it every once in a while. And so my brothers and I would, do like little skits or like reenactments of like, some of our favorite movies or do, attempt like stop motion animation with like our Legos or our Ninja Turtles and things like that. So I think that kind of like expression, that creative expression through video was sort of like, was like an early thing for me. I went to school for communications, and so that was like a mixed bag of radio and sort of print journalism. We had a school paper and a radio station and the like, but then we also had a video studio and video classes, and that was like sort of the clearest medium for me, and it was also sort of like this moment in time where we're digital at large, right, was just sort of taking
Mhm.
off, and so
Yeah.
this digital video overall. I moved to California, like I feel like most folks do at some point or another, and moved to Lake Tahoe area and opened that first credit card and put a bunch of debt on a video camera and a MacBook Pro and just
Mm.
really went all in on the sort of like outdoor action sports scene out there,
Mm.
and so that was like I think a really pivotal moment because it was so like DIY grassroots, right? Like just I was out in nature and exploring and that sense of adventure and with, these either like semi-pro or professional athletes, right? And just really like learning the ropes in real time, right? So like understanding what white balance really means, like understanding, different camera angles and lensing and lighting and just sort of how to document all this stuff that's happening fast and in action,
Mm,
right? And then of
mhm,
course the editing, right? So understanding like it's sort of how to produce a piece, how to shoot the piece, how to edit it, right? It was just I was very like immersed soup to nuts. And then we moved back to Massachusetts. This was like 2011. And I say this because for two reasons. One is I found this job for video production specialist on Craigslist. Okay. So
Ah,
that's not like
yes.
a moment in
Okay.
time where we all found our creative work, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that was at this burgeoning public relations agency, which like
Hmm.
I knew what PR like loosely was, but like, it's a really specific part of like communication overall, right? And so that was really
Mm-hmm.
my first sort of like understanding of brand and of businesses and business to businesses, right? And like
Mm-hmm.
I was the first and I was the first creative hire there. So it was a lot of
Oh,
sort of
wow.
like talking apples to oranges a lot of times, or like sort of like understanding like where creative is best used or like leveraged, I guess, right? When it
Mm-hmm.
comes to sort of like that style of public relations communication, right? But it was also a moment where, again, like 2011, like YouTube is a handful of years old. It's known as like the destination for cat videos. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like
Sure.
it was kind of like a shiny object for brands to produce any sort of video, right? Like a lot of the conversations back then were like, or like the objections would be like, oh, we don't do advertising, we don't do TV advertising, and it's like
Oh, yeah.
now I'm fast forward to today, and it's like the whole landscape is incredibly different, right? Like most brands lead with a sort of like video first mentality that's like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, it's the most sort of like creatively complicated medium to produce in, but like once you do that, and we'll talk about this, I'm sure, it's like there's so many different like facets of that, like the identity and motion and the like emotional
Mm-hmm.
expression and your messaging and the visuals, right? It's sort of this really like complex beast. So anyway, it's like now you look at the landscape and it's just video, 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 like
Yeah.
everywhere. So I feel very fortunate that kind of like these certain steps in my life, which really just started as sort of like this general sort of passion for the
Mm-hmm.
medium overall, has now allowed me to support my family and my team. I should
Yeah.
probably actually emphasize that like I was at this agency for about 12 years
Oh,
leading the
okay.
creative department, and at the I started there, I think there was about 30 people total. When I left, there was about 300.
Wow.
My team was about 30 creatives, ranging from motion designers and producers and editors and directors and et cetera. Um, but yeah, I just sort of got to this point of like I'm sort of losing a sense of like real focus and like
Mm-hmm.
how is this work that we're producing like really making an impact on behalf of not just the brands but like the audiences that we're working on behalf of, right? Like how are we
Sure.
helping empower like their decision making, and so a lot of that, and then just the sort of the self looking in the mirror of like recognizing, oh, I'm doing a lot of the business development and the marketing
Yeah.
on behalf of this team and leadership and client relations, and it's like, and I'm doing all this for somebody else's passive income at the end of
Yeah.
the day. So it's
Right.
like I had to take that leap of faith on, that bit of courage in myself to start Pennant Video. And so now we're
Mm-hmm.
about 2.5 years into this venture, and it's been awesome.
Wow. I mean, thank you for kind of taking us back and bringing us forward in the journey of your video experience and being like the first creative hire for a company that I can only imagine that uphill battle at times. But I'm
Yeah.
curious, when you think of creativity, what does it mean to you to be creative?
Oh boy. Gosh, that is such a good question. I think a lot of it is, it's in that sense of self-expression, right? Like,
Hmm.
and I think that's sort of the balance of like a professional creative at times too, is like you're always trying to put your best like sense of design aesthetic, or your best sense of storytelling, or your best sense of like just general experience, right? Like into the words, or into the designs, or into
Mm-hmm.
the final sort of deliverable of this piece. And that's like really sort of grounding, and it helps you get out of bed every day, right? But it's like, great, I get to sort of fulfill this sort of like desire to create every day. The challenge, especially in sort of marketing and advertising overall, is it's like there's usually some semblance of an agenda, right? There's some semblance of like
Mm-hmm.
a brand being like, oh, we need to hit these key talking points, or these, make sure we hit these KPIs, or this like data or something, right? And
Mm-hmm.
like that invariably sort of like chisels away at the like innate desire to like to create. So there is this like, this understanding that you kind of have to kill your darlings time and time again. But
Oh.
I think eventually you just like, you come to terms with it, and you realize like, well, I am getting to do the thing I like really love to
Mm-hmm.
do, and my build my whole life like doing. And yeah, the challenge with that is you have to let things go too. And I think that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm curious this idea of when creativity becomes a career, what
Mm.
happens to the creativity that, I mean, does it still jazz you up in the same way? Or like, how do you hold on to your creative voice in the midst of all of these other pieces that are kind of coming at you?
Yeah, I'll take that one in a couple small doses. So I think early in my career, when it was so DIY, it was
Hmm.
all for a lot of my own like fulfillment, right? So if there
Yeah.
was like a ratio, it was like most of the work we were doing was like on behalf of like athletes, or on behalf of a region, or a ski resort, right? But
Hmm.
then the further along I got, it was like, oh, I can take ownership of storytelling over like an episodic way, right? So we actually,
Mm.
and this was like kind of novel back in 2000, whatever, 7 or 8, producing episodic, like a mini series basically, for action sports that lived online, right? Like now
Mm-hmm.
it's like, yeah, it's like totally commonplace, but back then it's like, oh, it was actually like sort of a new way of producing. And so a lot of that was like, my own desire to like, not like make a name for myself per se, but just like be involved, be in the scene, be immersed, be enmeshed, like just sort of all those words, right?
Hmm.
But then you sort of jump further into the career where it's like, oh, now I'm getting like a steady paycheck, and I have health insurance, and there's sort of like the
Yeah.
things like that become sort of like your new normal. I think the balance of that is like, you have to bring a sense of pride and ownership into every single thing that you're doing, but sometimes you just hit a bit of an impasse when the person on the receive not even the receiving end, because it's not like the audience, it's more like the
Hmm.
person that's like has the stakeholders decision making power. Like invariably you have to come to terms that like you're not making this for you anymore. You're the conduit for somebody else's vision,
Right.
right? Like you need to make this on behalf of the business's goals, and you have to do that for all of the quote unquote right reasons. And even
Hmm.
if you don't like necessarily agree with them all the time, I think that's okay. Especially like
Hmm.
for like in the world of like marketing where I am, it's like every week is a new set of challenges, creatively or otherwise, right? So it's like you kind
Yeah.
of learn to embrace the like this too shall pass mentality, right? Where it's like it's going to be okay. There's going to be another one. There's going to be another opportunity like this one, and all of that's like really exciting. And now, and sorry, I'll also insert there that like in this sort of more formidable years of my career, when I was coming to terms with that, I had the time to actually produce work outside of the 9 to 5. So I would do
Mm-hmm.
like mini documentaries, or like music videos, or just sort of things that I didn't have like the classic sort of like invisible client like breathing down your neck, over
Sure.
the keyboard type of thing. So I do really encourage folks that like if you work in a creative industry and you're really fortunate, I mean, I would say first of all, you're fortunate to do that.
Hmm.
You should have that extra something that's like on maybe not even on the back burner, but it's just like I hate the word, like the term side hustle, because it's not that. It's more like that thing that can help you fill that creative bucket for yourself.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like, a couple short documentaries. Now I have two kids, so I have like even less time. But like now it's like, oh, well, how can I infuse a little bit of creative sort of spirit or inclination in them? And so like we'll
Mm.
film little things together. Or like
Mm.
I had my daughter do her, she's 9, so do her first like voiceover recording for a client project, which was super cute and fun. And so that'll actually be wrapping up this week. So I think you just tend to find other like little touch points or moments in your life where you can kind of bring all that together, you know. Anyway, that was a bit rambling. I'm not sure I really answered your question.
No, you totally did. I love all those pieces. And yeah, to recognize when time does get a little more crunched, having kids, partners, life in general, and still being able to just even look at what you're doing through that creative lens of like, oh, this is filling my creative bucket, whether it's through me or being able to work with my kid, do this fun little voiceover and see that creative spark, have that show up. When you are working with clients and more creative challenges arise, what's your go-to, this is how I navigate creative challenges for
Yeah,
yourself?
totally. I think the main thing, which is often more of like a educational challenge, right, is
Hmm.
that like when something seems a little messy, we call it like the messy middle. There's like is your early concept of like
Hmm.
this is the goals, this is the thing. And then there's the deliverable,
Yeah.
which is usually based on like a timeline or whatever. Like there's a date associated with it. So you got like your bookends, but like everything in the middle is kind of perfectly fluid, right? Like, yes, there's creative process, right? That's the
Hmm.
process part of that. So there's like your sort of standard set of like milestones or benchmarks that you're leading a client down so you can help with a healthy discord of communication and expectation and et cetera. But like you're supposed to do a little bit of thoughtful exploration like in between each of
Mm.
those milestones, right? So it's like we'll take like scripting, for example. It's like there's so many choice words you can make and tones and directions and pacing considerations that it's like you have to you have to explore a bit. And sometimes clients have a tough time. They're like, well, what do you mean? Just give me a script. And it's like, no, 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 let's slow down a second here. Like we have
Hmm.
to navigate this together to understand what's sort of best for the audience and where they're receiving this and on what channel and are they using their phone? You know what I mean? Just sort of like what is the
Sure.
mechanism for this, right? So I think like the messy middle is kind of the best place to be as a creative because it's like there's a lot of cool opportunities and doors to open and it's your responsibility to peek your head in and see just sort of like which one is the right
Mm.
best path on behalf of this like audience and this project in this moment, right? But sometimes clients like can have a hard time sorry, clients that are not creative can have a hard time recognizing that. They're like, I don't understand, like I don't see how we're weaving our way out of this. And it's a bit of kind of
Yeah.
like, well, just trust us. Like it's gonna be awesome. This is part of the creative part of creative process, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, that trust the process that not everyone can do or wants to
Mhm.
do or feels like it's okay, that and to be able to guide that ship of the messy middle. I love that phrase. I think that describes so much of creativity in so many
Yep.
moments.
Yep.
Yeah. When you know, work with people who don't think they're creative, and I'm sure there are many people in this world who who are literally hiring you to be the creative piece for their product or their business. How do you how do you kind of support these other people to find their creative voice or find that creative spark within not believing their own creativity exists?
Yeah. I'm very fortunate that a lot of what we do, um, there's there's often like a live action production
Mm.
facet to it.
Hmm.
So for example, this week we have two productions, one in Atlanta and one up here in Boston. And so our team's sort of dividing and conquering a bit, but the client contacts are going to be on site for those. And it's like
Mm.
that used to make me like kind of nervous, but now it's like, no, like this is going to be like probably the best day or set of days these clients have had in a long time, because they're going to get to just
Mm.
like really see like, sort of the behind the curtain, or like how the sausage is made, or whatever analogy you want to use, right? And it's like, I think any of those moments, like, again, this is specific to my field of video, but it's like anytime you can have a client on set, welcome that opportunity, because it'll just like open their
Mm.
eyes to like how complex things are
Mhm.
behind the scenes, because think of the alternative. If they're not, they're just like, oh, how'd the shoot go? How'd the production go? And you go, great. They don't know what that means. You know what I mean? Like, or
Right.
like, hey, there was like a challenge here, but we overcame it in this way. Like, they don't
Mhm.
they don't know what they're looking at. So that's super fortunate. I think that when we do a lot of design or motion design and animation type of work, it's like really over explain as to like how
Mm.
you are arriving at these certain decisions, right? So I think
Mhm.
as a creative, like a piece of advice would be like really learn how to communicate your ideas as best you can. Like
Mhm.
whether that's through your own sense of like documenting, or like voice recording, or just like any way to sort of like help bring others along with you that are not
Mhm.
creative, will help them understand why you're making certain choices or certain decisions. And then if they understand that, it'll either be a more like valuable part of that creative process, or if they don't agree with it, at least as a launch point to like have an informed discussion together, versus
Mhm.
just like friction out the gate. So
Sure.
yeah, I think just like learning to communicate and showing people as much as of your process as possible really helps bring people in. That builds trust. It just really helps build the right amount of expectations, I guess, for everybody.
Absolutely. And I can appreciate the bringing people along, and for creatives to really understand how to communicate to someone who may not know the language or understand what it is you're talking about, and be able to, not only are you communicating to an audience, but to the people that you're working for as well, is so important. You talked a little bit about, or mentioned, the kind of emotional piece of selling something or communicating why this is important. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about, I don't know how deep into the psychology of things you all get in your piece of it, but how do you marry those two worlds of wanting to tap into that emotional side and still keep the creativity present?
Yeah, the first thing we do is we kind of call it the double high five of carrying sympathy for our client and empathy for our audience. So, or
Mm.
their audience. So let me like
Hmm.
lean into that a bit. So like the sympathy side is like the people that we're producing this work like for, like the people that are like paying the invoice or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, you really got to put yourself in their shoes and understand like the ton of pressures they have. Like marketing is, oh my gosh, like what a field. Like these folks get really no credit for where it's really due. And there's pressures from like all sorts of leadership and internal stakeholders, and KPIs and data and benchmarking and et cetera, et cetera.
Hmm.
So sort of like lots of pressures. So the best thing we can do early is really like align with their bits of like motivation and understanding of like, well, are they in this for like the creative risk taking that we all
Hmm.
want to pursue, or are they a bit more like cautious and more like retention centric?
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So at least then we can early on understand how to navigate the interpersonal stuff with this individual, and
Hmm.
also just understand like, well, how experienced are they in
Sure.
this medium? You know what I mean? Like, have they been on a production set? Have they like done any
Hmm.
marketing videos in the past? Like, what's the sort of degree of understanding with the person that you're working with to like produce on behalf of? I think is really critical. And that's probably super obvious too, because it's like this is how you build trust with these people early, is like,
Yeah.
just being informed and sympathetic to their situation. Now, of course, the empathy side is a bit more alluring and interesting creatively, because that's who's watching this on the other end, right?
Hmm.
So you need to have the understanding of like, well, where are they at in their own journey with this
Mm.
brand in my case, right? Like what are their sort of like pain points that they're trying to overcome in their respective role, or like the industry overall and its challenges or bureaucracy or whatever, right? And so it's
Mm-hmm.
like carrying that is super important too, because that's where you understand the sort of depth of emotion that you need to infer into this thing, right? Like, should we just be really clear and direct and therefore assuring, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or can we get it, or should we lean into these pain points and literally dig at the challenges that these audiences are having, and now like here's this opportunity to have a path towards a different way, a different resolution, right? So
Mm-hmm.
at Pennant, we really call that like we're trying to empower better decision making. Like that's really all we need to do in what
Mm-hmm.
we're producing here is like answer the FAQ that they have in this moment that helps them on their journey with whatever decision making they need to have. Because
Mm-hmm.
just for a little context for the audience here, like in business to business or B2B, like a lot of these sales cycles or buying cycles, sales cycles can be like many months, like
Mm-hmm.
6 months, 9 months, 12 months, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like whereas like with a consumer product, like someone's scrolling on Instagram and like, I've been seeing this whatever this sweatshirt for a while. I'm gonna go in and buy it. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
like with B2B, there's like the buyer who's going to use whatever the tool is, but then there's usually some sort of a leader above him, her, or them, and then usually a CFO or somebody's like responsible for the financials, and then the CEO is responsible for the vision of the business. So it's
Yeah.
like the layers of complexity. I like to explain all that because it helps ground us in particular with like, great, when we're producing video, there's no like one video silver bullet that can answer everybody, all of those stakeholders' questions
Yeah.
at whatever stage they're at, right? So having that empathy for like the moment is really important here too. So I
Mm.
think once you have that, like that sort of double high five established, now you know you're a sense of your sort of creative guardrails, right? And like how
Mm-hmm.
to best approach this opportunity. And then of course things like timeline and budget have their own say too, but it's at
Yeah.
least the best like jumping off point.
Yeah. No, thank you for kind of breaking that down and explaining those pieces, the double high five, the sympathy, empathy. I think oftentimes we forget about just how much the sympathy needs to be acknowledged and attended to so that you can get into that empathy of the consumer or the
Yeah.
wherever, whatever it is that you're, you know, making the video
Yeah, the
about.
yeah, the audience, right? Like the
Yeah.
person you're like I always say this, like one of the best ways to make your CEO happy is to make your audience or your prospective buyer happy,
Yeah.
because it's like just start there, start at the end with the audience, and it should do the work it's supposed to on behalf of the brand overall. But you're still working with individuals inside of
Right.
that brand. So you have to be sympathetic to what their day-to-day really looks like.
Yeah. I'm curious, the creative freedom that many creatives feel like, oh, I wish I could have so many more choices and options. When you get to those sticking points where your creative vision and a client's idea of what they want to see are not in alignment, how do you work with that? How do you navigate it? What are those pieces that you've found to be most helpful?
Yeah, I mean, having a bag of tricks helps. And so like by that I mean like a portfolio, because like
Yeah.
showing them within reason what you mean goes a long way. So,
Yeah.
and even when a client or a prospect comes to us, they're like, have you ever done like this type of thing? It's like it's usually the
Mm.
best jump off point. But
Hmm.
yeah, I would say through the process, part of this is like it really helps alignment at the right stages. So it's like from the jump, the creative concept, it's like, all right, this is how we're envisioning pulling this together. Like, are we aligned there?
Hmm.
Great. Script, are we aligned? Great. Typically some sense of like mood boards or style frames. And for those who don't know what that means, it's like designing like one or two frames, so like moments of a video against one or two moments in the script. So it's like the client
Hmm.
can start to see like, okay, this is how we're going to express our identity or the visuals or the user interface or whatever the thing is we're showing, right? Against certain words in the script. So that just
Hmm.
assures alignment there too. And then it's the little moments like voiceover, or music sort of genre or tone, right? Like all these things are like the puzzle pieces that we're assembling. So I really just try to like show them each of those respective puzzle pieces within reason as possible, so that that typically like gets ahead of any gotchas, I guess is what I
Mm-hmm.
call them.
Mm-hmm.
I will say though, so just to like answer your actual question, it was like when this is when we're working with a direct point of contact, right? Like
Yeah.
that's typically very clear. The challenge we often run up against, and this goes back to like the experience of that person, is they're like, oh, well, my CEO doesn't want to watch it until it's finished. And we're always like, okay, that's a big red flag, because like they haven't been along the decision making journey we've all been
Right.
on together. So it's really like that's why those questions from the beginning of like, what's your experience in this sort of medium
Mm-hmm.
or arena? It's not to like whatever make them feel inadequate or something. It's more just so we understand how to help them navigate the
Mm-hmm.
internal expectation setting too, so yeah, it's I guess what I'm saying is it feels kind of more rare now, like that there's like riffs or anything, because we're all
Mm-hmm.
sort of like in collaboration. It's just when somebody who's been sort of exclusive to the project comes in towards the end or the 11th hour and has
Yeah.
feedback. It's like, oh, like, how did that happen?
How did we not plan for this? How could we
Yeah,
get,
exactly.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to share all of these pieces and your creative journey with us. I have one last question. What does it feel like in your body to be creative?
I don't know. It's like, it's really, it's really energizing, like I feel both like the push pull of like I want to experience more, be adventurous, explore, right? But also there's like this the other side of it is like you feel like you're a grounding rod, like you're actually in the place you're supposed to be, So
Mm-hmm.
I think that just comes time with like a long career at this point like I've had. It's like you're always looking forward to the next best brightest thing, but you're also learning to like stay grounded in the moment and appreciate like what's in front of you, So it's a funny push pull, I guess.
Hmm. I can appreciate that and understand what you mean by that push pull and energizing, but still staying grounded in yourself and experience. So thank you so much, Tim, for taking the time to chat with me. If people want to learn more about the work you do, how could they go about doing that?
Yeah, so I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So Tim Bradley Pennant is probably the best way to find me there. I try to share, bits of advice on like leadership and the sort of entrepreneurial journey, but also like more practical advice around video marketing and
Mm.
creative in general there. And then our website is Pennant, like the flag, so pennant.video or pennantvideo.com. Yeah, those are probably the best places to find us.
Perfect. I will put links in show notes so people have very easy access. And thank you again so much for taking the time to chat with me. This has been such a wonderful conversation.
Likewise, thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.